Welcome to the virtual public scoping meeting for the Spur 399 Extension Improvement Project from US 75 to US 380. TxDOT appreciates your interest in the project and thank each of you for your participation. Please note you can pause this presentation at any point to allow more time to view the slides. Given the unique circumstances of the COVID-19 outbreak along with TxDOT's commitment to protecting public health during this pandemic, TxDOT is conducting virtual public meetings until further notice to avoid in-person contact. At this time, the virtual format is being held in lieu of an in-person public scoping meeting. This presentation will cover the same information that the Dallas District would have shared at the in-person public scoping meeting. However, the comment process will be different. Details on how to submit a comment and how to have your questions addressed will be covered later in this presentation. All project information can be found at www.keepitmovingdallas.com/spur399 scoping meeting. This virtual public scoping meeting has been convened by TxDOT and it has 6 essential purposes. Explain the process for an environmental impact statement, also called an EIS. Present alternatives to be studied in the EIS, provide the project's purpose and need, share what TxDOT will consider during the project, present the schedule and project steps, gather public input. Scoping meetings help start the NEPA process for an EIS. NEPA stands for National Environmental Policy Act. During this phase of project development, TxDOT must evaluate all viable alternatives as well as changes to alternatives previously presented. An important part of the scoping process is the development and public review of the following documents. 1. Draft Purpose and Need Memorandum, which explains why TxDOT is developing a project and provides the basis for the evaluation of alternatives. 2. Range of Alternatives shows all alternatives being considered by TxDOT. 3. Methodology and level of detail for analyzing alternatives provides more details about how alternatives will be analyzed. 4. Coordination Plan is a plan and schedule for coordinating public and agency participation. These documents can be accessed at www.keepitmovingdallas.com/spur399 scoping meeting. A preferred alternative will be identified near the end of the EIS process. A preferred alternative is an alternative that TxDOT concludes would best accomplish the project's purpose and need and considers the factors in the alternatives analysis. You will have the opportunity to provide official input on alternatives during a future public meeting and the preferred alternative during a future public hearing. The preferred alternative will move forward into detailed design, which is the next phase of project development and is anticipated to begin in 2022. Due to many factors that must be considered, the project development process can feel like it takes a long time. TxDOT is committed to moving as quickly as possible while making informed decisions that carefully consider input from the public, agencies, and other stakeholders. TxDOT and its project team encourages you to stay involved throughout the project development process. TxDOT previously conducted a feasibility study for US 380 in Collin County and presented a recommended alignment in May 2019 and finalized the feasibility study report in April 2020. The next step in project development is a more in-depth look at alternatives and environmental impacts. NEPA requires TxDOT, as part of the EIS process, to evaluate all viable alternatives considered and eliminated during the feasibility study, as well as others developed by TxDOT. It is important to note that TxDOT's recommended alignment from the feasibility study was based on the data collected during the feasibility study, and now that TxDOT is gathering more data that could change previously studied alignments or lead TxDOT to consider new alternatives. Ultimately, TxDOT must find an alternative that would best accomplish the project's purpose and need and considers the factors in the alternatives analysis. TxDOT is developing and presenting different alternatives to try to identify the one that is the least impactful alternative possible for this project. This, however, is a challenge due to the many constraints. Following this virtual public scoping meeting, comments will be considered and will be responded to in a public scoping meeting summary report, which will be posted on the meeting website. Comments can be submitted by Submitting an online comment form at www.keepitmovingdallas.com/Spur399 EIS Scoping Meeting. English or Spanish comment forms are available for download from the website. Mailing or emailing a written comment to Stephen Indres at the address on this slide. Recording a verbal comment via voicemail at 833-933-0440. Comments must be received or postmarked within 15 days of the meeting date, which is Wednesday, March 10th, 2021, to be part of the official virtual public scoping meeting record. Questions about this project can be directed to the TxDOT project manager, Stephen Indres, PE, at stephen.indres@txdot.gov. All virtual public scoping materials, including a virtual public meeting room and interactive maps, can be found at www.keepitmovingdallas.com/Spur399 EIS Scoping Meeting. You can also visit the site to find EIS documents and comment forms. Meeting notices may be found at www.keepitmovingdallas.com under Public Hearings and Meetings on the Public Hearings and Meetings page on TxDOT.gov. In 2016, the Collin County Commissioner's Court identified US 380 as one of several priority roadways for study as a limited access roadway, which is also referred to as a freeway. No alignment was specified by Collin County. In 2017, leaders from Collin County, the North Central Texas Council of Governments, NCTCOG, and TxDOT agreed to develop a strategic roadway plan for the county. TxDOT was tasked with studying US 380. NCTCOG would evaluate other roadways including north-south routes, and Collin County would further study the Collin County Outer Loop. TxDOT concluded the most recent US 380 feasibility study for Collin County in April 2020. The US 380 Collin County feasibility study laid the groundwork for TxDOT's current evaluation by recommending a freeway alignment that would serve as a starting point for the EIS currently underway. This feasibility study was a good initial step as it allowed TxDOT to gather information early and discover issues that would need to be addressed as the project continued through the development process. Let's walk through some of the highlights from that study as it pertains to this project. The study initially focused along the existing US 380 corridor across the county, followed by development of new location alignments that could draw traffic away from US 380 and other congested roadways within the county. The alignments were also developed to try to address the magnitude of growth occurring in Collin County communities. One such new roadway was the Spur 399 extension. Early in the feasibility study, TxDOT evaluated roadway options and various other modes of transportation such as transit, bicycle, and pedestrian travel. It was ultimately determined that these other modes were unable to independently relieve traffic congestion. Therefore, TxDOT continued to evaluate roadway options, which included the following: making no new improvements, constructing select grade separated interchanges, constructing a freeway. It was ultimately determined that the construction of a freeway was the best option that met the study criteria. TxDOT coordinated with many stakeholders during the feasibility study, some of which included stakeholders representing study area municipalities, McKinney National Airport, Collin County, North Texas Municipal Water District, and Encore Wire. During this county-wide feasibility study, TxDOT received and responded to over 18,000 comments from the public. The vast majority of comments were supportive of a freeway. However, many concerns were expressed about the locations for the proposed alignments. It is also important to note that there were many comments received and responded to about other locations in the study area. The project we are presenting at this virtual public scoping meeting is shown in purple on the map. The other corridors illustrated on the map are progressing through separate schematic design and environmental projects led by TxDOT. This project and this virtual public scoping meeting does not include information about the project shown here in orange, which is the US 380 from Coit Road to FM 1827 Improvements project. TxDOT hosted a separate virtual public scoping meeting for that project from January 21st, 2021 to February 5th, 2021, which showed alternatives under consideration along US 380 and new location alternatives from Coit Road and FM 1827. If you would like more information about this project, you can visit www.keepitmovingdallas.com/US 380 EIS Scoping Meeting. Construction of an extension of Spur 399 would not require any other transportation improvements to be constructed to allow it to operate. This includes the US 380 from Coit Road to FM 1827 project. The study area for this proposed project can be seen here. Most of the area falls within the southeastern portion of McKinney, near the McKinney National Airport. It also includes or is near portions of the town of Fairview and the cities of Lowry Crossing and New Hope. Spur 399, which you can see at the bottom left of the map, is currently a limited-access spur highway that connects the Sam Rayburn Tollway, also known as SRT, and the US 75 interchange to SH5 in the southern part of McKinney. The proposed project would be a new location alternative to extend this current roadway as a freeway section. TxDOT has initiated the preparation of an environmental impact statement, also called an EIS, for the Spur 399 extension from US 75 to US 380 project. The National Environmental Policy Act, known as NEPA, requires federal agencies to assess the environmental effects of projects prior to making decisions. An EIS is prepared when it is anticipated that a proposed project could significantly affect the quality of the human and natural environment. There are 3 categories of analysis that TxDOT can complete as a part of NEPA, of which an EIS is the most rigorous. This phase of the project is a more in-depth study than what was previously done and will build on information collected during the feasibility study. Adhering to NEPA is required on any project that would receive any federal funding. For this project, TxDOT is developing an EIS under an agreement with the federal government. Prior to December 16, 2014, the Federal Highway Administration, or FHWA, reviewed and approved documents prepared under the National Environmental Policy Act known as NEPA. However, on December 16, 2014, the Texas Department of Transportation assumed responsibility from FHWA through a Memorandum of Understanding to review and approve certain assigned NEPA environmental documents. This Memorandum of Understanding between TxDOT and FHWA was updated on December 9, 2019. The review and approval process applied to this project. Environmental studies are being conducted for the Spur 399 Extension Improvement Project from US 75 to US 380 to support an environmental clearance in accordance with NEPA. These environmental analyses are necessary to identify, avoid, and minimize effects to the human and natural environments. TxDOT will develop an EIS document in coordination with other public agencies. Notices for this public scoping meeting were advertised in the Dallas Morning News, Al Dia, Collin County Commercial Record, Community Impact McKinney, and McKinney Courier Gazette. Information is also available on the TxDOT.gov website under Hearings and Meetings Schedule and on www.keepitmovingdallas.com under Public Hearings and Meetings. The TxDOT Public Information Office also prepared a news media release to advertise the public scoping meeting. Let's focus on the EIS process, which began in the fall of 2020. We are currently in the scoping phase at the beginning of the EIS process. It is an open process involving the public and federal, state, and local agencies. The purpose of scoping is to help determine a range of issues, alternatives, and potential environmental impacts to be considered in the EIS. Input from the public and agencies is vital to the development of the EIS and will be used in determining the appropriate scope and content. TxDOT hosted a scoping meeting for agencies on December 10, 2020, and this virtual meeting is the public scoping meeting. Scoping meetings are different from a public meeting in that, a scoping meeting, TxDOT presents and gathers input on scoping documents. An evaluation or analysis of alternatives is not presented at a public scoping meeting, but it will be presented at the upcoming public meeting. A notice of intent was published in the Federal Register on January 11, 2021. This is the official notice that TxDOT will prepare an EIS for this project pursuant to NEPA. Following scoping, TxDOT will conduct an analysis of the alternatives, including multiple build alternatives and a no-build alternative. This will include thoroughly analyzing the alternatives for potential impacts to the human and natural environment, as well as various design specifications and criteria. This analysis includes a detailed evaluation that now includes field assessments and surveys. The analysis process is anticipated to extend from spring 2021 through fall 2021. TxDOT will host a public meeting in the fall of 2021 to present and gather input on reasonable alternatives, design schematics, and findings of the environmental studies. Between the fall of 2021 and summer of 2022, TxDOT will identify a preferred alternative and further develop its schematic design. A draft EIS, which includes the preferred alternative, will be prepared and reviewed at a public hearing expected to be held in the summer of 2022. The combined final EIS and record of decision identifies the preferred alternative and is expected to take place in the winter of either 2022 or 2023. This will mark the completion of the environmental review process. It is also important to note that outreach with agencies, stakeholders, and the public will take place throughout the process. Major tasks that will be completed during the development of the EIS include more detailed evaluation and design, as well as continued coordination. TxDOT will complete a detailed evaluation of engineering and environmental considerations during this phase of project development, including preparing the methodology and level of detail for analyzing alternatives, which is available on the meeting website and further explains how TxDOT will analyze alternatives during the preparation of the EIS. Develop plans to address future travel demand. Further analyze population and employment growth. Design a freeway to current roadway design and safety standards. Conduct field assessments and surveys to determine locations of resources such as wetlands, floodplains, and culturally sensitive areas. Evaluate any potential noise, air quality, and community impacts. Complete more in-depth economic impact studies. TxDOT must evaluate many engineering, environmental, and community factors before identifying a preferred alternative. A list of factors is presented on the slide. Some of the criteria were considered during the feasibility study, such as impacts and displacements. You will see additional categories that require TxDOT to conduct in-depth and field studies to gather the data that will be used in the evaluations, such as floodplains, noise, and historic/archaeological preservation. The methodology and level of detail for analyzing alternatives document posted on the meeting website provides much more detail about analyzing alternatives. TxDOT is in the process of gathering the data for many of these categories that must be completed before alternatives are evaluated during this EIS. Part of the analysis is public input. That said, when providing public scoping meeting comments, please let TxDOT know if there are any other resource categories that should be addressed or if there are any additional or updated study methodologies that should be considered. Once TxDOT has gathered the data and drafted an alternatives analysis matrix, a public meeting will be held to share the results, present reasonable alternatives, and gather input. Because of all the data that needs to be gathered and the time it takes to complete the analysis, that public meeting is currently anticipated to be held in the fall of 2021. During the EIS process, TxDOT will also complete schematic design and preliminary engineering tasks such as determine how much right-of-way is needed for the entire project, customize typical sections for different locations, develop ramp locations and design interchange configurations, determine the constructability of the project, calculate more detailed cost estimates, complete drainage design, and consider bicycle and pedestrian accommodations. TxDOT will also complete more coordination with agencies, other stakeholders, and the public during this phase of project development, including a coordination plan and schedule has been developed and is available on the meeting website. This plan also includes details of TxDOT's public involvement activities that are planned during the development of the EIS. Coordinate with resource agencies such as the United States Army Corps of Engineers, Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, North Central Texas Council of Governments, and others. TxDOT has invited federal, state, and local agencies as well as tribal nations to be involved in the development of the EIS as cooperating or participating agencies. Continue to work with area cities, towns, and the county to update future development and transportation plans. TxDOT will work to make sure that this project complements the current and planned roadway network in the region and proposed expansion to the McKinney National Airport. Many other roadway projects will need to be considered, such as the US 380 from Coit Road to FM 1827 project, US 380 from West County Road 26 Denton County Line to Coit Road Project, US 380 from 1827 to CR 560 Project, Collin County Outer Loop Project, and SH5 Improvements Project. Continue to coordinate with major utilities such as North Texas Municipal Water District. TxDOT has developed a purpose and need for the project. The Purpose and Need Memorandum is available for review on the meeting website. The purpose of this project is twofold. The project must improve north-south mobility and improve connectivity. The project is needed because of reduced mobility and connectivity between the eastern portion of Collin County and destinations south of McKinney. Project needs will be further discussed in more detail on the following slides. Let's take a look at Spur 399 as it exists today. Spur 399 is a limited-access spur highway about a half-mile in length that connects the Sam Rayburn Tollway, also called SRT, and the US 75 interchange to SH5 in the southern part of McKinney. Other major north-south roadways in the project area include US 75, SH5, and Airport Drive. Drivers from northern and eastern Collin County must take US 75 or SH5 to reach destinations south of McKinney, including the Dallas Metroplex. The rapid commercial, residential, and industrial growth within and around the project area has resulted in an increased need to use area roadways. This has resulted in intersections along US 380, such as the ones at US 75 and Airport Drive, performing at a failing level of service, which can mean drivers can experience long delays at these locations. Due to these reasons, motorists are using alternative routes to avoid congestion, as shown by the red arrows on the map. Routes include, but are not limited to, Airport Drive, Industrial Boulevard, and SH5. Let's take a look at population growth in and around the study area, which will support the need to improve north-south mobility and connectivity. In 2019, Collin County had a population of 1,034,730 people, making it one of the most populous counties in Texas, and has experienced a 32.4% increase in population between 2010 and 2019, according to 2019 U.S. Census data. According to the Texas State Demographer's 2014 population projections by migration scenario data, over the next 30 years, Collin County could anticipate an increase in population of up to 160 to 170%. The U.S. Census Bureau's American Fact Finder found that the city of McKinney has experienced an increase in population of 51.9% between 2010 and 2019. Growth also occurred in other communities near the project area, such as a 26.1% increase for the town of Fairview and a 103.7% increase for the city of Princeton. One reason there is reduced mobility and connectivity between the eastern portion of Collin County and destinations south of McKinney is that there are simply not enough roadways existing or planned to support travel demand with the growth that is expected in the future. Let's take a look at the map on your screen developed with the data from NCTCOG's Metropolitan Transportation Plan, MTP, which is also called Mobility 2045. NCTCOG identified areas shown in blue as the following: areas where growth and development will occur, areas where connectivity is lacking, areas where congestion already occurs on existing roadways. The darker shade of blue indicates a higher need for roadways. In other words, these are areas with deficient existing arterial networks. Congestion already occurs on existing roadways in the project area and roadways connecting the project area to the rest of the region. NCTCOG has also projected that the traffic congestion will worsen by 2045. The segments of US 75 shown on the left of the screen in yellow and red will be over capacity and operate at a level of service D, E, and F during peak hours. Level of service measures the quality of vehicle traffic service based on performance measures like vehicle speed, density, and congestion. A level of service F is a rating assigned to roadways with high traffic volumes and limited roadway capacity. On this map, you can see traffic volumes gathered in 2019 in comparison to the projected traffic volumes of 2045. Traffic volume is measured in the annual average daily traffic, which is abbreviated AADT. AADT is the total volume of a roadway for a year, divided by 365 days. Let's look at the top call-out box with the star on it on the map. At that location in 2019, there is an AADT of 49,804 vehicles per day going southbound. In 2045, that number is expected to more than double to be 102,218. Likewise, at the same location, there was an AADT of 51,305 vehicles per day going northbound. In 2045, that number is also expected to more than double to be 102,528. Additionally, there was between a 45 to 50% growth in travel demand on the existing US 380. That number is also expected to nearly double by 2045. That means more traffic on US 380 and US 75. There are currently no existing or planned roadways that address the connectivity and mobility needs of travelers from the eastern portion of Collin County to bypass the current and forecasted areas of congestion, particularly through McKinney. As growth in these areas continues, congestion along US 75 through McKinney will continue to worsen without consideration of alternatives to bypass the most congested areas. It is expected that this will impact travelers accessing employment, education, healthcare, and commerce using US 75/SH121 in McKinney to travel south. Also, incidents and construction projects create even more challenges and congestion along US 75 and connecting roadways. As you can see on the crash rate map for the Spur 399 project area, areas along US 75, SH5, and US 380 are areas considered dense with crashes. There are many constraints that TxDOT must consider in this rapidly developing and growing project area. This means that there are limited locations with minimal impacts for placement of new build alternatives. Constraints include the following: neighborhoods, McKinney National Airport, existing businesses and residencies, future developments, existing and future parks, United States Corps of Engineers, property, wetlands, floodplains, and streams, cemeteries and community facilities, utilities and water supply projects, and landfills. You can view an interactive and static constraints map on the project website. Now let's walk through the proposed project. The proposed action would involve the construction of an 8-lane freeway that would extend the existing Spur 399 from US 75 to US 380 in the southeast quadrant of McKinney. An alternative east of the airport, shown in orange, in addition to the alignment west of the airport, shown in purple, are under consideration along with the no-build alternative. The two-build alternatives share a common segment from US 75 to approximately 500 feet west of Couch Drive/Old Mill Road. The alternatives range in total length from approximately 4.8 miles for the purple alternative to approximately 6.5 miles for the orange alternative. Both alternatives would connect to existing Spur 399. The project would pass through McKinney and unincorporated areas of Collin County. The proposed roadway would generally require 320 to 400 feet of right-of-way. The roadway would typically provide 4 12-foot wide travel lanes in each direction, inside and outside shoulders, and one-way frontage roads on both sides. Connectivity to the existing and planned roadway network would be provided through grade-separated interchanges at major arterial roadway crossings. In an effort to minimize impacts, TxDOT may consider removing frontage roads where it is feasible, and some areas of the freeway must be elevated on bridges or lowered below grade. TxDOT will further evaluate the compression and/or depression of roadways in select areas. One area that TxDOT will consider compression of the roadway is near the McKinney landfill. Because of ongoing coordination with Collin County, McKinney, and the North Texas Municipal Water District, TxDOT is considering a small shift in alignments near the segment common to both alternatives. This area is severely constrained because of planned improvements by Collin County for FM 546, planned major water pipelines, the McKinney landfill, and a number of industrial developments. Other major constraints in this area that TxDOT will consider include wetlands, floodplain, and floodways. TxDOT has refined its feasibility recommended alignment to reflect ongoing coordination with Encore Wire to accommodate access to their facilities and future expansion plans. In this area shown, TxDOT must consider impacts to McKinney National Airport, neighborhoods, and parks. The orange alternative matches the purple alternative from US 75 to approximately 500 feet west of the intersection of FM 546 and Couch Drive/Old Mill Road. From there, the alternative would continue south and east around the south end of the McKinney National Airport. The alternative would turn to the north as it crosses FM 546 at the southeast corner of McKinney National Airport and continue to the north, crossing the east fork of the Trinity River to tie into US 380 near FM 1827. The orange alternative is similar to an alignment presented but not selected as the recommended alignment during the feasibility study. Since the end of the feasibility study, the orange alternative has shifted approximately 2,000 feet to the north, which is closer to the McKinney National Airport. This changed alternative avoids impacts to nearby parks and minimizes impacts to residents. The shift is not anticipated to impact current McKinney Airport expansion plans. The orange alternative does not directly impact the town of Fairview Soccer Complex and Nature Preserve. These properties would have been categorized as parkland, and TxDOT is federally required to avoid impacting any park if there is a more reasonable and feasible alternative available. In accordance with new federal guidance, TxDOT's goal is to complete the development of an EIS and schematic design in 2 years, which is being shown on this slide. You can see that we are currently at the public scoping stage. At this time, the project team is collecting data, completing field investigations and survey, as well as further developing a design schematic. To complete this stage of the project, TxDOT must obtain right-of-entry agreements from landowners for over 300 properties in the project area before completing field investigations and survey tasks. After this virtual public scoping meeting, TxDOT will go through the process to screen and evaluate alternatives. TxDOT anticipates hosting a public meeting in the fall of 2021 to show and gather input on reasonable alternatives and share up-to-date project information with the public. After TxDOT evaluates input received at the public meeting, TxDOT will start technical studies and develop a draft EIS, which will include identifying a preferred alternative and conducting agency reviews. At that time, TxDOT will continue to develop the design schematic of the preferred alternative more fully. The public will have the opportunity to provide input on the draft EIS, which includes the preferred alternative. After the public hearing, TxDOT will finalize the EIS and work with the federal government to obtain a record of decision, also known as a ROD, which TxDOT anticipates would be in early 2023. TxDOT can begin acquiring right-of-way needed for the project after a ROD has been issued and project funding is identified. TxDOT has begun to identify potential sources of funding for right-of-way acquisition and construction. After the ROD is issued, TxDOT can also begin final design, developing more detailed cost estimates, and coordinate with utilities. This phase of project development is expected to take anywhere from 2 to 4 years. Phased construction of the project would not begin until at least 6 to 9 years from now, and that is heavily dependent on TxDOT project needs and funding. Construction could last anywhere from 4 years to 6 years after the final design phase. TxDOT encourages you to view the documents and information available at www.keepitmovingdallas.com/Spur399 EIS Scoping Meeting and provide us your comments. TxDOT is interested in comments on the project and all the documents listed on the screen. Again, it is important to note that a final alternative has not been chosen by TxDOT. All alternatives that you are being shown in this virtual public scoping meeting are conceptual and being shown with a 320 to 400 foot right-of-way width. The location of the alternative can still be shifted. The right-of-way width can still change before the preferred alternative is finalized. TxDOT anticipates a final preferred alternative will be presented at the public hearing in the summer of 2022. As a reminder, there are multiple ways to submit a comment. Following this virtual public scoping meeting, your comments will be considered and will be responded to in a public scoping meeting summary report, which will be posted on the meeting website. Thank you for your participation in this virtual public scoping meeting and your interest in this project.